last sports thing you watched, and how did you watch it, Jimmy?
The last thing that I was really riveted by was the Australian Open men's final.
And how'd you watch it?
It was our event. I watched it on ESPN.
Okay.
Yep, on my big screen.
Pretty traditional.
Through Hulu Live.
Okay.
That's my
That's what
virtual MVPD in Connecticut. Yeah.
George, what's the last thing you watched, and how'd you watch it?
Well, I watched some highlights on Twitter this morning of some events, and of course, I've been traveling on the road, so I think it'd be the AFC and FC championship game 2 weeks ago. So I'm a little behind Jimmy, I think.
So there's lots of ways we can watch sports, right?
Yes.
So we're looking at where the fans are. These are all fans. Everybody's probably watching in different ways. Jimmy, where are the fans? How are they watching those?
Well, look, we're trying to run parallel paths here.
Yeah.
So the traditional ecosystem has been very good to ESPN. It's been very good to the Walt Disney Company. Cable, satellite, that business remains a very healthy business for us. And
despite people years ago saying it's done.
Correct. Fast forward to today, and it's still a solid business for us. Our mission is to serve the sports fan anytime, anywhere. So if you want to watch it through DirecTV, that's great. If you want to watch us on your phone, you can authenticate through your NVPD. Or if you want to watch, for example, content that's exclusive to the ESPN Plus platform, like UFC or Bundesliga, you can subscribe just to ESPN Plus and not have to have a traditional carrier, if you will.
George, come on in on this, because, I mean, you're steeped in sports. Your family's been steeped several generations. You know, you're CEO of NASCAR. I'm just thinking about your investments that you're making in companies, a variety of companies. How are you seeing that fans want to engage?
Yeah, so everything we invest around has been on the change of media consumption.
Yeah.
We believe things are changing, and we invest around the change. You know, if I have young children, not 17 to 25, so not so young, they don't have cable subscriptions, the ones that are working, and they're consuming content differently, and you got to use different platforms to reach them, right? And as Jimmy and I were talking about last night, it's really building a relationship with the consumer. So I believe you know, technology is the enabler, but it really is understanding data and marketing and giving the consumer what they want and when they want it really is the future. So I think, you know, older people like me, you know, probably consume things one way, but younger people are consuming things differently. And in sports, I think the people that are better at engaging the consumer and building that one-on-one relationship are going to be the people that do really well.
Yeah, I would add social is incredibly important. So we've spent so much time at ESPN talking about how much of our bandwidth, how many resources we should invest in our owned and operated properties like the ESPN app, ESPN Plus, and how much should we be investing in Instagram, Snap, TikTok. And we believe pretty strongly that we have to be everywhere. Again, serve the sports fan.
Right.
And if the sports fan is consuming or wants to consume sports content or ESPN on TikTok, we need to be there. But it's not just taking what's on linear television, cutting it up and putting. It's got to be native. It's got to be organic to the platform. So we have dedicated teams that are creating content, different content for those platforms.
You know, go ahead.
No, 100%, because those consumers are going to want to see things differently, used to seeing it differently.
Yeah.
So you're giving the same old thing. It's just not going to work.
It's funny talking with a bunch of athletes here, and they're saying, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you didn't have to think about social as an athlete, and now you really need to do it. Jimmy, does what you do on social ultimately drive to other platforms? Maybe people get a snippet of something, and then they ultimately want to see more?
That's exactly the strategy. So
and it works?
Yes, it does work. I will tell you that this is just one little anecdote, but I was speaking at a conference, a sales conference, and we were having this exact discussion. And afterwards, an executive came up to me and said, I just want you to know I have two teenagers, and they were both introduced to ESPN on Snap. And now they're watching First Take and Get Up on traditional television. So for me, that's the strategy. You know, we, of course, want to be there, and we'll continue to be there on those platforms, but it's a way to grow awareness. It's a way to grow affinity and get this younger generation just generally excited about ESPN.
Go ahead.
And the other thing that's interesting now is gambling.
Well, that's
in sports, right? I mean, 31 million people are supposed to bet on the game Sunday. $8 billion will be wagered, legally, by the way, up 78%. We have a company called Odds Checker that it's kind of a kayak for betting. In the UK, we're bringing it to America. And in the first 3 days of New York being live, we did 15% of the budgeted revenue for the year. So obviously, we budgeted it too low. But the gambling is sticky as well. So when you think about gambling, social media, digital media, understanding what people want, you know, the world's changing around us.
Okay. How does gambling turn into somebody who ultimately goes to ESPN? Does it work? I mean,
well, look. So here's what
you guys have. You're moving.
We're in
it.
We are in the space. We've been in the space for several years.
Bob Chapek of Disney actually said this week he's bullish on sports, including betting.
He is. He's bullish on both. I will tell you, we've been in the space. We have content. We have dedicated segments on SportsCenter. Scott Van Pelt has his SportsCenter where he does a segment called Bad Beats. We have dedicated podcasts. We have a dedicated area on ESPN.com. We have a ESPN branded studio in Vegas on the Strip that generates betting specific programming on a regular basis. We've done the research, and of course we were treading carefully here over the past few years, still investing, but really looking closely at the data. And what we saw is that, number one, our fans are no longer just okay with it, they're demanding it. They expect ESPN to be offering this betting experience within our environment.
Right.
Number two, and this is really interesting, we didn't see any negative impact on the Disney brand. I mean, for those of you that don't know, the Walt Disney Company owns ESPN, so we wanted to be careful in that regard too. And what we're seeing is it was neutral to positive even on the Disney brand.
Which is surprising because I think people thought family brand. How could you get into betting?
Well, you see all the leagues now, all the major leagues. In fact, every league is.
You're 19 times more likely to watch a sporting event if you make a bet. So if I'm a broadcaster of sports, how can I not do it? Like, if they don't do it, everybody else will. They'll be at a disadvantage. ESPN really doesn't. I can say it. You know,
no, it's all right.
You don't have a choice. They have to. They have, like he said, he has to be where the fans are, and he has to give the fans what they want.
Yeah, we're in a battle. We're in a battle for people's time. We're not just competing against the traditional sports media companies. We all know this. We're competing against Instagram and Snap and Fortnite and Netflix. And so we have to be aggressive here. Now, that being said, my job is to protect the brand at all costs. And if I saw any data that indicated to me that this was a dangerous position to be taking, we wouldn't do it.
Right.
Even if there was financial upside, we wouldn't do it. I have to protect the brand. But we're just not seeing that.
Any worries about the integrity of sports in general, especially as we know it's teams getting in, right? The league's getting in. I mean, everybody is really kind of all in when it comes to betting and gambling.
Well, you know, around the world, they've been doing it for a long time without really any issue. I mean, there's always an issue of integrity, but I would argue you had that whether it was legal or illegal. I mean, one of the things we're finding is that legal betting's way up. Makes sense. I'd rather make a legal bet than an illegal bet, right? So if I now have the choice to make a legal bet, it's probably better. But no, I don't think there's any evidence that it's been a real issue. I mean, in Europe, they've been betting for quite a long time.
Yeah, and look, somewhat connected to that, one of the things that we bring to the table, I think, is our brand, which represents trust, a certain level of credibility. So anyway, we see opportunity here, but of course, we're going to do it responsibly.
Right, and just tread carefully and go slowly.
One of the things you see, the leagues, which I think is really smart to that point, is talking about doing advertising, the NFL, about responsible gaming. I think that's one of the learnings that wasn't done well around the world. And you see some of the countries increasing regulation, and I think the leagues here in the U.S. are trying to get ahead of it by initially do this responsibly.
Right, because there is the concern of that. Well, Odds Checker, your company, I mean, how much have you seen in terms of the growth of your brand?
Well, it's early. We just bought it, but what we are seeing in the U.S. is amazing. I mean, I expect this weekend to be incredible. And like I said, the opening of new markets, you know, you can only bet right now in 30 states, so there's 20 states left to go.
Right.
And it's
moving quickly.
It's moving. It's more than we thought it would be. I think the net is gambling's bigger than everybody thought, and it's moving faster. I think it's just moving a lot faster than I thought when we got into it.
And look, George, just to use the sports cliche, it's the first inning, right?
Really
so today, you're going to a dedicated sports app. In the not too distant future, you're going to be consuming media in a digital environment, and you're going to be able to place a bet right there around the game. Now, obviously, you have to do that in partnership with the leagues.
Right.
You know, what's probably most important to ESPN is our live rights portfolio and our relationship with the leagues. So whatever we do would be in lockstep with them. But there's so much opportunity from a product perspective to advance this whole ecosystem.
Well, you know, and I guess gambling is part of the content. How much, though, is it? You talk about the NFL relationship. I had Marie Donahue up here. You know, Amazon, you know,
Yep.
aggressively moving in with the NFL. I feel like it's the holy grail in many ways. Content. You guys do long form. Like, talk about The Last Dance during the pandemic.
Yeah.
I know you guys rushed it to some extent, right? To get it.
Yeah, we accelerated it, I'd say. But yes, it was not meant to be launched in April of 2020. We were several months away, but we felt like the world was craving new content, and we were getting there. So yes, the director moved heaven and earth and got it out for us, and we couldn't be more proud of that. And it is that series is consistent with our strategy in terms of ESPN Films and 30 for 30, which is bigger, bolder, more impactful projects. So we have something coming out with Derek Jeter called The Captain. We have something coming out with Colin Kaepernick.
Spike Lee, right?
Yeah, Spike Lee. We just brought on Spike Lee to direct it. These are needle-moving projects.
And it does in terms of your fan base.
Oh yeah.
People
and by the way, Man in the Arena and The Captain, the Jeter documentary, are exclusively on the ESPN Plus platform. So, you know, when you look at our priorities, not just at the Walt Disney Company, but at ESPN, we usually lead with direct-to-consumer, and that means we need fresh, impactful content for that platform.
So, George, when you think about investments and stuff, as you said, you know, you're looking at the media space, but it's technology. You're pulling in a lot of different things. You know, what are the interesting trends and innovation that you think are going on? You know, we're talking a lot about Metaverse, and we're trying to figure it out. But what is it that you think are going to?
What we're squarely focused on is the data, like understanding the consumer. Like we run OTTs around the world. Mm-hmm. We operate in 20 countries, and I know on the OTT, we know at what price somebody will buy something. We know what ads move them. And so, you know, take sports content. Today, a lot of leagues sell sports content as a package. I was talking with Jim last night. It's going to be different down the road. You're going to be selling all different services. You're going to merchandise, all kinds of experiences. The idea that right now I only sell a subscription for content and I'm not building that relationship with the consumer, that's the future. And when you look at sports leagues, you know, they don't really think enough about the lifetime value of a customer. Yeah. So as the distribution channels change, and you know, look, the cable model for leagues is quite profitable, right? Right. So that the sports depends on that. That probably is going to erode a little bit more as time goes on. But what will open up is the relationship with the consumer and looking at things as the lifetime value of the consumer, not just selling somebody season tickets and nothing else, or selling them live game content and nothing else. It's going to be those people that can develop a whole holistic relationship with the consumer. And I see it, like, because the companies we own, we're on the forefront of it. Right. And so I was telling Jimmy, you got to have great technology, but at the end of the day, it's marketing. That's going to be the differentiator, I think, between people that do well and people that don't do as well.
Timmy, how do you think about it in terms of the technology space and pulling it in and just innovation in general? You've got to be thinking about down the road of how the fan wants to interact with you.
Right. Today, it's mostly, I mean, we've been successful in fantasy. Yeah. I actually, before I was at Disney, I worked at Yahoo. We were very invested in fantasy. So there are some examples of that lean forward experience that have been around for some time. But for the most part today, when you look at the ESPN fan base, it is a lean back experience where you're again, the heartbeat of ESPN is our live events. Right. We've been heavily investing in live events over the past year and a half, as you know. But when I look out,
Sunday Ticket, is it going to happen?
Sunday Ticket, yeah. We are interested in Sunday Ticket. I think it's now safe to say that we are. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know where this is going to net out. But of course, you know, going back to my point on direct to consumer, that is a product that I think was made for a digital platform.
How do you guys think about the responsibility of companies that you invest in, companies that you own, you guys at ESPN, in terms of some of the big issues that are out there in sports, whether it's racism, whether it's diversity and inclusion. How do you think about it, George? You know, we're all kind of
I think it's really important in these tech and data companies. The employees tend to be younger, and so for our employee base, it's really important. So when we had some issues in
they're saying things to you.
Yes, and when when they had George Floyd, I penned an email to every employee in all the companies that we owned. I felt so compelled to state my position of how I felt about that situation. And I know it was well received that somebody cared, right? And then you have to do further. So we require charity initiatives. We require diversity and inclusion. And I think you have to take a position on these matters. One, it's the right thing to do, but two, if you don't, in my case, it's demotivating to the employee base.
Yeah, look, we cover sports. We're the place of record when something happens in the industry. And so there are issues that are not connected to sports in any way that we should not get involved in. But what's transpired over the past couple of years, you know, when we like to say that we stay away from politics. That's not what we do. There are plenty of people who do that better than we do.
But increasingly more athletes are putting out positions too.
Yes, although what I'm feeling and seeing is these topics are more about humanity than about politics. And so I take a lot of pride in how our talent, our producers have shown up over the past couple of years in terms of covering these issues. Now, again, we typically, we look through a sports lens. It's our job to cover sports and, again, be the place of record. But, of course, there's this regular intersection now. And if there is that connection to sports, we're going to cover it, and we're going to cover it well.
You know, I think about where the fans are. It used to be growing up, I think about the Olympics, like it was so, you knew it was going to be a week or whatever, a couple weeks, and you knew you went to a certain space. But it's like you can go anywhere now for things like this. George, what do we need to be thinking like 5 years from now? How are we indirectly engaging? You talk about data, you've touched upon some of it, but is there something outside the box that we're not even thinking about?
You know, I don't know. You know, the metaverse. I think the whole.
Is it crazy?
No, it really isn't. You know, if you have.
Sorry, don't tell Bob.
If you have two I have boys, one in college, one's working. I mean, they're on those games. They got the headset on.
Yeah.
They're interacting with their friends.
Right?
You can see it's coming, right? If you have girls don't do it as much, but guys in their own version, they do it. So that I think that is coming, right? Because who would have thought 15 years ago I could be on a headset with 20 guys playing different people all over the country.
Yeah.
And so like that's here today. So I think more and more extensions of that in the future. I think that's where this thing's headed.
Yeah, look, we know we can't do this alone.
Yeah.
We launched
a lot
an
of
initiative.
hardware. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of engineering.
Yeah.
We launched an initiative called ESPN Edge. It's a partnership with Accenture, Verizon, Microsoft. So we're working with these companies to start thinking about how we can create that interactive, immersive sports experience, that lean forward experience as opposed to lean back.
Yeah.
You can call it the metaverse. You know, we've actually been somewhat active in this space in terms of interactive environments and having our IP show up. So we had partnership with various gaming companies, video gaming companies, like, for example, Epic and Fortnite. We have a property called the Ocho, and some of our IP made its way into that gaming environment. You can expect to see more of that from us, but then the next step beyond that is that immersive sports experience that is either offered on a third-party platform like Facebook or Meta, or their Metaverse, or potentially even within ESPN Plus. And then the question is, and everyone in this room knows this, and I think it's a constant question that I think people are asking, interoperability.
Yeah.
Like, is that promise really going to be delivered? And are we going to see an environment, at least in the sports industry, where it's all connected? And as I sit here right now, I can't give you an answer to that. I will tell you that we're investing, we're partnering with the right companies, and we're definitely thinking about the environment that we can create within an ESPN Plus-like environment.
All right, most important. Mike,
I will tell you, we own a company called Full Swing.
Yeah.
And 100%.
The golf simulator, right?
Yeah, and Jimmy and I would be able to play Augusta and compete against each other in 2 different locations.
Yep.
That's going to happen. So I can play St. Andrews, I can play all these courses, and I can play against my buddies anywhere in the country.
Look, that makes sense,
that's coming, right?
Like, you can take you there. All right, the most important question, Rams or Bengals? Come on.
I'm going to answer
You
it.
totally fails me.
So I'll tell a quick story.
This is not a hard question.
So several years ago, I got a call from Joe Burrow's agent, and he wanted to join us in our ESPN suite, and he did, and he was a fantastic guest. He was the nicest guy. I think my son was with me. He could have been kinder to my son. I'm a New York Giant fan.
Me too.
So I don't have skin in this game, but I'm going to root for Joe Burrow.
Very nice. I like that.
Rams. The defensive line's too much for the Cincinnati offensive line, so I think it's the Rams.
Well done,
Yeah.
George, Jimmy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.